Good evening, everyone. I'm with my very, very special guest, Paul Cale Sensei. Before I bring him on, when I was a teenager, I used to polish Don Drager Sensei's shoes. I used to take him his mail, take him his meals when he stayed at my uncle's dojo. And I'm not dropping names, but one day I took him his mail, and one letter read Major Don F. Drager. The other one read Professor Don F. Drager, and the third one read Sensei Don F. Drager. So I took him his mail, and I stood there, and he said, "Yep." And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Which is it? Professor, Major, Sensei?" And he looked at me and said, "A little bit of everything." So, Paul Cale Sensei, you're a Shihan, you're a retired sergeant, you're a coach at the Australian Institute of Sport, you're the head coach of the Australian Armed Forces, you're a teacher of other martial arts as well, so you have the title of Sensei, Shihan, Professor, retired sergeant, all these titles. Which is you?
A little bit of all of them. You gave me the answer at the start. Perfect.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't have said that, should I? But yeah. Okay, so how do you bring all these together?
To start with, by not trying to bring them together, and just understanding each of them for what they are, and then it's just over time they start to blend. So it'd be like, it's like if I tried to make something look like karate or judo or aikido, that's one thing. But I think if you're not trying to make it look like karate, and people say that's karate, and other people go that's aikido, and other people go that's judo, and you're not trying to be any of them, then that's when you sort of feel like that it's a natural blend. You know, or I'm teaching the military, I'll teach stuff that we do in the military, and people go, "Oh, it's got a lot of aikido sort of elements to it," and I'll go, "Yep." And then other people would say it's got a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu elements, and I'll go, "Yep." And people say it's kind of like karate, I'll go, "Yep." It's really what you want it to be, because it's just I don't try to make it something, it's just a blend. And that's sort of what I am. I'm a blend of my lifetime experience now, not any one in particular.
Okay, so look, in my experience, it takes a special kind of person who can study different martial arts, put it together. I'm not one of those. I'm I focus on one thing, and that's me. We've known each other a long time, and folks will talk about our past history a little bit. But for now, the most amazing thing about Paul Cale Sensei, and I noticed of Don Drager Sensei as well, was they can bring different things together. They can study different martial arts, bring things together. What's the secret to doing
that? I think the secret to that is stop looking for answers and start looking for the right question. So I think I hear a lot of people saying, "What's the answer? What's the answer?" And I go, "Well, what's the question?" And they don't have an answer. So, you know, you need to start, I guess, having a question that's worth answering, and then the answers will appear to you, and solutions will come.
Let me stop you there a second, okay? That's almost like a Zen proverb. Can you give me an example? Be a little bit down to earth. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I read a lot of martial art books. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of classic books from different martial arts. Many of that are out of print now, written by founders and first generation students and so on. And when I first read it, I would say, "Oh, that's a lot of philosophy or certain thinking," and I never made a relationship between the two. But now it makes a lot of sense, and so many things overlay each other now, And so what's an example? An example is me teaching the Army Combatives Program or KEF-IC. It's deliberately not labeled anything in particular so that, you know, it's just what we need to do the job. And it's really more about tactics over technique. And there's even something to say about that in martial arts. And that's when you start to realize, because you know, I might be talking about combat stress and breathing techniques to deal with stress. And then you realize, well, those breathing techniques are similar to maybe Goju-ryu. I mean, in the past, a lot of these martial arts created techniques and processes that a lot of people don't even understand the reasoning behind it. They just do it. And the people who created probably don't understand the reasoning behind it. It's just that that school has survived to this day because it worked. And if it works, then you just keep doing it and you teach the next generation, hey, this worked, so do this. Not understanding the psychology or the physiological effects behind what you're doing. Whereas today we now have science that will tell us, you know, do this and do that. And you'll always find elements in old martial arts. You'll find somewhere an element of those things. And for me, I've just defined my question, and now I'm finding a lot of answers. So my question is now, what's true for all confrontation? What's true? You know, I find when I say all confrontation, you don't have time to choose the type of confrontation you've got unless it's a sport. Unless you walk into a dojo and you go, this is the style of what I'm doing, and this, oh, they play combat sport here and here's their rules and so on. Then you can choose. But dealing with confrontation, you can't sit back and hope for it to be, oh, he'll probably just punch on with me, or I hope he's not drunk, I hope he's not armed. You've got to think worst case scenario. And if you think worst case scenario, then what is the worst case scenario? And what do I need to be aware of? And if I'm in the worst case scenario and I'm unarmed, then what do I need to be aware of? And then if they injure me first, what allows me to keep fighting when injured? So that's the sort of, I guess, where I look at it. With the military, I have to also look at what can you do in 1 day's training, 2 days training, 5 days training. So you're limited by time as well. So, you know, a lot of people don't understand one of those elements. They either don't have the combat experience to relate to what you want to achieve in training, or they have a heap of experience in training and they try to fit too much into a short period of time. Things like that. So it's just, okay, here's your time frame, here's what these people want to achieve. And that's why I'm able to get one message across to police, one message across to army, one message across to aikidoka, one message across to judoka. It's because what do these people concentrate on? What's their background? What's their objectives? Okay, no worries. So I'm always asking what's the question, not what's the answer. And it's much easier to find an answer. There you go. Nice long-winded explanation.
Thank you. Look, your answer has thrown up a whole lot more questions, but, you know, being the rating slut that I am, I'm going to go with the fans' questions. Okay.
Hopefully they're good questions. We should be able to determine people's grades based on profession questions.
Question.
I've listened to all the previous shows that you've done, for want of a better word. Is that the right word? Show, and they've all been excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
heard that.
you know, it's
share the hell out of it. Okay, sorry. This goes back to what we talked about before, but I need to ask this anyway. It's from someone from Malaysia. His name's Ashwin. He says, how do you incorporate the different martial arts styles that you've learned into your own style of combat, or when you're in the field?
Right, into your own style of combat, or when you're in the field? Was that the question?
In the battlefield.
So same battlefield.
Everyone, look, if I had to go into Paul Cale Sensei's martial history and Budo background, we'd be here all day. So please, if you want to appreciate his answers and where they're coming from, Google his name, look at his experiences, both in the military and in the martial arts. Sorry, shoot.
No problem. Okay, so, well, first of all, in combat, because it's such an extreme thing, you know, I'm going to rely completely on the military training. And that's you're weaponized. You want to be able to make an effect on your enemy at the longest distance. Now, funnily enough, all martial arts, except for the modern day versions that we see today, want to affect the enemy at the furthest range. That's why people have long spears, all different societies. Pretty much every culture created a bow and arrow. Like, this is, you know, it's a deliberate thing to not let the enemy get close to you and affect them as far as possible. So, but the nature of the job in special forces is to close with the enemy in sort of their ground of their choosing and use surprise, I guess, to give yourself an advantage for a short period of time. And the last thing you want to do is be caught in a hand-to-hand situation. It's too random. The outcome's too random. And I guess from my experience, I've had huge martial art experience when I first entered close quarter fighting in a battlefield or hand-to-hand fighting. And I guess the surprise and the incredible strength that you get from someone fighting for their life was just, there was nothing that I was prepared for, but the outcome was good for me. But then I also realized we're teaching soldiers stuff for a week. Like, I've been doing this for decades and I literally fought for my life. So we're kidding ourselves the way we're training people. So that had the greatest effect on the way I started to change training of close combat. And it also completely changed the way I think about martial arts myself. So how do I prepare? My thought process is quite simple. I want to be able to engage the target at the longest range. I want to be armed if possible. And I've got a bunch of principles basically that I refer to all the time. And I think of it regardless of martial art. And if someone's attacking me, I always have an expectation that they're either armed or they outnumber me, and I haven't been aware of those supporting them, or both. There's a reason why they're attacking me. And to not have that in your mind straight away is to allow you to be overwhelmed, ambushed, what have you. So the way I deal with combat is always thinking at the highest level. So I could walk down the street and look, this could be a part of post-traumatic stress or whatever, but I've always been the same. So I could walk down the street and I'm always thinking tactically. Now, martial arts always had hey-ho. A lot of martial arts, the old styles, the Koru.
Sorry, for the plebs here, please explain hey-ho.
Yeah, so it's a martial like strategy, martial method. So it's the strategies behind martial arts, and it's the number one thing that is lacking from modern Budo. Modern Budo doesn't need it. It has techniques and it has philosophy in improving yourself as a person. And that, again, was well explained by Sensei Darren in your last interview, where he talked about the post-World War II effect on martial arts. So he was spot on, in my opinion, and it's had a huge effect on the way martial arts are taught. And the thing is, with new masters that have come in and gone, well, we need to make this full contact and we need to do this and we need to... They're all doing different things. And everyone's like, yeah, we should do this because this sport's closer to fighting. Well, the fact is that the most important thing is tactics over technique. So strategy, and what strategy you can pull out of your martial art is where it's at. Now, I'm always going to lay that against modern military strategy. And if there's a link to that, or if there's something that the old arts or one of the martial arts can do to enhance that strategy and that thinking, then I'll take it on board. So I guess that's the biggest thing for me. There's my question, and that's the thing I'm always looking for answers. Now, the funny thing is I have found answers in Aikido. Currently, I'm finding answers in Shotokan Karate. Like, it's truly fascinating me. And I can see clear linkages how that supports Aikido. And I've always found it in Judo and Jiu-Jitsu. Not probably how people think you would find it. But I find that if I'm unarmed, the Aikido and the Karate, predominantly together, make a lot of sense, because you've got to use your body at range. How can you close range quickly? How can you have an effect at the longest range? And modern fighting doesn't do that. I don't, unless you're making a nice big long takedown, double leg, what have you, people think kicking is long range. And you'll watch good Shotokan fighters who will punch you in the face from a further distance and someone can kick you fast. And that's really interesting to me. And then, so did I answer the question? Because I can just keep gibbering away. Does that sort of answer it?
No. Well, okay, so Thomas Walbridge, I know that was Ashwin's question, but Thomas, I think Paul Cale Sensei answered your question there too. I'm going to do a follow-up question in a little while, and it will help you again. Thomas talked about how do you prepare yourself, and I think you answered it with strategies. I know the answer could go for 2 hours, but let's crimp it there.
Yeah, mental preparation is the most important.
Now, a long time ago, someone asked you, what's the best martial art? And you gave an analogy of firearms. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So for those people out there who want to know what is the best martial art, for my money, that was the best explanation ever heard about what's the best martial arts. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a reason. It's always good to look at a country when you're asking about what's the best martial art, because Japan has a lot of diversity with martial arts. When you link Okinawa to Japan as well, and so they have a lot of different ranges that people are interested in. So I guess that was about like weapon systems. I'll carry a knife, and when I need that knife, that is the best weapon. If I carry a pistol, when I need that pistol, it is the best weapon. And when I have a rifle, an assault rifle, or if you have a sniper rifle, when you're using that tool, you're using the best weapon for that situation. So what's most important is tactics. Tactics will tell you what the best martial art is at the right time. So no martial art, like let's look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They'll go heavily, and I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So don't think, if I trash talk something or you think, oh, he's getting stuck into him, I probably have a black belt in it. Don't get wound up or anything like that. But if you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, everyone's like, oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There is no way I ever want to be on my back or really on the ground, if I can help it, on a battlefield. Simple as that. But I need to know how to fight off my back and on the ground if things go wrong. So it's about training for when things are not how you want them to be. So Aikido, for instance, I mean, a lot of people here will be Aikido, is that right? Mostly people involved with this will be Aikido. Aikido has a lot of excellent elements to it, but I think of Aikido as fighting with a spear, or Mokuju, or like Jukendo, like Juken, like bayonet, which Ueshiba Sensei did use in the early days. And so imagine having a weapon and you're clearing someone off your weapon, or you've lost your weapon and you're trying to close in on someone, what have you. It's very good for that. But as soon as somebody's at extreme close quarters with you, or you've fallen to the ground, then you're going to say, well, I would probably want judo to support that. Or if you're at range and you want to have a powerful impact of someone without a weapon, you might say, well, I want to, use a oiski or something. So, yep, it comes down to situation, and the martial arts are sort of derived from different things that used different ranges and so forth. And they look very different today than what they did in the past. And they're much more, linked to each other in the past.